In this video, we will learn about the VTP protocol, and this is the abbreviation for Vlan trunking protocol. VTP uses the UDP protocol on port 2323. This is the port that is used to exchange information between switches. Let's go. The VTP protocol we use to manage VLANs on a group of switches. This means we can create VLANs, modify them, and shake them on a switch. I want these changes to be implemented on the rest of the switches automatically. There are three modes for the VTP. The first mode is the server mode, and this is the mode of the switch responsible for managing and creating VLANs. The second mode is the client mode, and this is the switch that receives changes in the VLANs from the switch device, which is in server mode. Mode means that I have a switch that I leave as a server mode, and this is what I create the VLANs on, and the rest of the switches I leave in a mode switch, which will take 1000 secs from the server. The third mode switch is transparent mode, and this switch does not take the VLANs from the switch, which is in server mode, but passes the VLANs. For the client device that it is connected to, in the example before us, switch 1 is the server mode, and this is what we will create the VLANs on. Switch 2 and 3 are client modes, meaning they will take the VLANs that I created on one automatic switch. Switch 4 is transparent mode, meaning it will not take the VLANs from one switch, but he will pass it to the 5-volt switch of the switch. It will remain on the server mode originally. This means that when I get the switch from the factory and pick it up from its box, it will still be a server mode. So when I go to the switch that is on this server mode and say, "You are on the server mode," I find it telling me the advantages of it. It makes it easier for me to manage the VLANs. This means that if the number of switches I have is large, it will save me time and effort. Disadvantages: if an error occurs on my part while I create the VLANs on the switch that is in server mode, in this case the error is sent to all the switches in client mode. This means that this error is transmitted to all the switches that are on client mode. Well, in the example we have presented, there is one switch and two switches in server mode, switch 3 and switch 4 in client mode. This means that we will make the VLAN on one switch, switch 2 and switch 3 will take the VLAN from switch 1 and switch 4 will take the VLAN from switch 2. Let's see.
تعالوا نشوف الconfiguration.
This is the configuration that we will do for VTP. I will enter one switch and tell it, "You are on the server mode." VTP mode. If I make a question mark, I will find the three modes that we said about them. I will be threatening a terrible server. When we told it that you are a mode server, it told us that we are the ready mode server. Then I have to create a VTP domain. I can call it any name, but I will call it any name, ccna, small letters, then VTP password, and a notification for any password, and let it be 1, 2, 3. We will enter two switches and run it with the same configuration, VTP mode server, VTP domain ccna, and I will also take note of the name, even if it is small. This domain must have the same name as the domain of switch 1, then VTP, with a password of 1, 2, 3. We will enter a secret switch and switch 4, and we will tell them that you are a client mode, and we will have the same configuration. We will enter switch 3, and we will tell him that you are on a client mode, VTP, a client mode, VTP domain, and I must write the domain name, which is ccna, which I wrote in the server with the same letters as the capital, even small, and then VTP. The password, 1, 2, 3, must also be the same password. The domain name and the password that contains the client must be the same as the domain and password that the server has in order to get authentication between them, and the VTP protocol works between them as it should. We set a secret switch and a switch for the same commands. We have now finished the configuration of VTP. Come now, we will set up the VLANs on switch 1 and switch 2 and see if switch 3 and switch 4 will take these VLANs or not. Will anyone have access to one switch, VLAN 10 enter exit, VLAN 20 enter exit, and their privacy in switch 2 also at the same time? commands, but we have to make connections between these devices, meaning the ports are trunk ports and the ports are access ports. Let's give them the configuration. We will enter one switch and say to it intg01 swp mode trunk swp trunk encapsulation point 1q, but this command is not willing to run on the Cisco backtracker, but in reality it is running. SWP trunk allowed VLAN 10.20 and also intg02 SWP mode trunk SWP trunk encapsulation point 1q SWP trunk allowed VLAN 10.20. Two switches with the same configuration in the switches. We will also access the 3 switch I have, which is intg01. This is also trunk SWP mode trunk SWP trunk encapsulation point 1q SWP TRUN. K allowed VLAN 10.20 and call it INTRF01-2, which is these 2 ports, which means SWP mode access SWP access VLAN 10, which means they follow VLAN 10 spanning tree port fast, and the second 2 ports are INTRF03-04 SWP mode access SWP access VLAN 20, which means they follow VLAN 20 spanning tree port fast. Switch 4 is the same configuration that we did for switch 3. Now our connection is completely complete. If we go into switch 3 or switch 4 and type the command show Vlan brief, we will find it immediately. It is IT carried. They have VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. This means that the VTB has done its part perfectly, so that we can see the configuration. With the VTB, for example, we enter one switch and it remains show VTB status. We will find him constantly telling us that the VTB
mode server.
Also, if we enter one of the 2 switches, which is switch 3 or switch 4, and write show VTB status, we will find him telling us that the VTB mode is client, and the one in front of us is the configuration of the VTB. What we did in this video. Share the video and do not spoil the information. Share with me what you support. Why do you like and subscribe? It helps me to continue.